Now, Evan, the thing we're looking at is kind of the long term, what this means,
Yeah,
and things we know what it means. We know right now outright that the Bills control their own destiny and the Patriots have lost control of their destiny. Patriots are now still likely to make the playoffs, but the Bills are in the driver's seat. With wins in their next two, they automatically clinch the division. Two extremely winnable games for Buffalo. So at this point, you pissed away the AFC East and a home game most likely. Chance to still get in the playoffs. The question is, what do they even do if they get there? How much of what we've seen now is a concern? And again, would have been better if the Indy game was a blip and you built off that second half and you
right.
came out and you played well. But now you've seen it twice. You've seen when the game's on Mac's shoulders alone, whether it's him not being ready, the offensive weapons around him, it's not a winning formula. And the defense, we all agreed, in order for this team to have any chance, had to be elite. I think we were fooling ourselves into believing this had a chance of being an elite defense. They have a they can be a good defense when
Yeah,
everything goes well, but they're not elite. We're not talking about the Ravens or friggin' one of these, not current day Ravens, but teams that win Super Bowls with their defense. The Patriots are not one of those teams, even back to 2018. Yeah, So,
right.
so who are they? What are they? And what can you expect from them? Do they need fluky things, breaks, things to go right? Is there can you recapture some form of an identity with only a couple of weeks to go entering the playoffs?
Yeah.
I'm not really sure.
So I think the good thing is, or the positive spin on it is that you do have, especially next week against Jacksonville, feels like one of those college tune-up games, right? You play your Ohio State and you play Appalachian State in the beginning of the season to make yourself feel good and grow some confidence in yourself and make some good plays and put some of that momentum together. So if they can springboard Jacksonville and they can come in here kind of like that Jets win. Right? Remember a couple months ago, the
Yeah.
Jets come in here, they won what 56 to
For,
10 or whatever it
yeah.
was, and blew them off the field. And that is what spearheaded that 7-game win streak, and that's what got the season turned around. So if they could do something similar with Jacksonville next week, and then build off of that with a really tough schedule type game against Miami in Week 18. I'm not saying the Patriots are going to make a run to the Super Bowl, but at least they can be a competitive team in a wild card game when that time comes. But I think what we're learning about this Patriots team right now as frustrating. I didn't want to lead with this because I think that this is putting it kind of letting them off the hook a little bit for what happened out here today, which was a flat, no good performance. But I think what we learned about the Patriots in the last 2 weeks is that maybe we are a year too soon for all of their back talk, right? I'm not saying that they're going to fall back down and not be a playoff team next year and all that kind of stuff. But I think maybe this year the 7-game win streak was great, but maybe the team got a little bit overhyped for what they actually are at this stage of the rebuild. It's year one, it's Mac's rookie season. So I think maybe they were just a year too soon to really pull this off and win the division, especially with Buffalo being in the division, who's a very good team. And having a good team in the division like the Bills, it was probably a year too soon to sit here and say that they were going to be AFC champs and the number one seed in the conference and all that kind of stuff. Maybe this is truly not even maybe, I believe that this is truly a reflection of who they actually are as a
Yeah.
team. That 7-game win streak wasn't necessarily the team that they were, but this team now, a 9-10 type win team, was probably who they were going to be from the beginning if all things went well. And you have to take that as a positive as a Patriots fan, that this was probably close to the best case scenario for the team this year in Mac's rookie year. Most likely a 10-win season with a rookie quarterback was as good as it was probably going to get, even for Bill Belichick. So I think that's where you kind of go with this, is you look at it and you say, maybe they're just a year too soon for all this hype, and next year and beyond. Remember, this is a 4 to 5 year window. I would probably call it more like a 4-year window, but you could extend it to that 5th-year option with Mac if you want. It's a 4 or 5 year window with a rookie quarterback on a rookie contract, right?
That's
And
fine. Yeah. Yeah.
Josh Allen at this point is on that 4th year of that contract. They make the AFC title game last year. They look like they're going to be another tough out in the playoffs again this year. And that's where you want to be. But Rome wasn't built in a day, and I think maybe we got a little bit too ahead of ourselves because it's Belichick, because of who the players were, some of the veteran guys, but they simply are not ready to be that team yet. Maybe
They
they
are,
will be, but they
yeah,
aren't yet.
they are not. But what I think is going to kind of eat at people is not Mac in year one might have been slightly overhyped. It's that the Patriots went all in on free agency, and that
Yeah.
should have been able to insulate, Mac in,
Well, I think that's what's going to get them to 10 or 11 wins, right? Is the fact that they did bring in a lot of talent in the offseason and overhaul this roster quickly. But I think, as we have pointed out some of the flaws in this team, I do think that they are still a couple of players short of being championship caliber. And I think that that's what we've learned the last couple of weeks is we have learned that maybe there are some real deficiencies in this roster that are too
and
hard
that's
to overcome.
and that's the
Yeah,
bummer, is that you spent more than anybody, not especially on the offensive side of the ball, bringing in four pass
right.
catchers here, and you're getting a plus season out of Bourne, and then not a lot else out of that
Yeah.
out of that group. And despite spending all that money and addressing the need, you are where you are right now, which what probably will be, by a significant margin, the worst skill position group entering the playoffs, and certainly near the bottom of the league, as it is anyway. And that was after addressing the problem. So addressing a problem and having it still be a problem is in itself a problem. And I think when you have the games like this, it brings it back up. I do think, as you said, that 7 game win streak masked a few things, but the
Yeah.
reality is they're not getting enough there. And you were just hoping over the evolution of the season things would click, whether Mac would be allowed to do more or the chemistry would develop. But you hate to see it go backwards with 2 games to go in the year, and that's kind of what I feel has happened here after the bye, which is just so bizarre that they've come out like this the last couple of weeks. And as you said, the execution being so poor, and the effort
Yeah.
and the focus them being so
The
flat,
starts have just
bad dumb
been so
penalties, slow
terrible.
starts. Exactly.
Yeah, the starts have really been what's, I think. Look, the reason why I brought up some of the stuff about how maybe they were just a year too soon for some of the hype that they were getting, and maybe they aren't fully there as a team, is one thing. Is that you put it in one place in terms of the big picture, but small picture, or just looking at these last 2 games, you played 2 games that if you win them, you probably have clinched the AFC East already. You have like I called it, an AFC East championship game here at your home stadium, and you come out flatlined. I mean, just totally flat on both sides of the football. And it really seems like it took this team back against the wall the last 2 weeks to light some sort of fire under them and get them going. And that's just simply not, it's not good enough. It's inexcusable. The fact that they are starting so flat and so just lethargic in these games is, it's mind blowing. I don't know how it happens, especially in a game like this where you're playing for the division. This is for all the marbles in terms of the regular season and the standings and all this kind of stuff, and to come out with no energy and no rhythm is really shocking on multiple levels.
Yeah. It is at this point. I don't know what you'll do when you go back to the drawing board here. I guess we've seen them do it already this year. Come out and
Yeah,
look different and look better. So again, I
yeah,
guess at this point, you know, you just look at these next 2 games as kind of get right, get into the playoffs, and then a lot's going to be matchup dependent here in terms of what they're going to be able to do, and
yeah.
who they'll have to
Yeah,
face.
if,
But
if if they draw some of these younger quarterbacks that are in the AFC playoff picture right now, a Herbert, a Burrow, someone like that, I wouldn't be surprised if Bill Belichick can scheme up a game plan to limit some of those guys and make those guys one dimensional and kind of get after them a little bit. So I think there are matchups in the AFC where this defense can look really good against some of these teams that are probably going to make the playoffs. I mean, just looking at the seeding right now, Cincinnati is currently the 3 seed, right? So that would be the matchup. We in the wild card weekend, they'd be traveling to Cincinnati to play the Bengals. As good as the Bengals look today, as good as the Bengals have looked at times, I'm still pretty confident that Bill Belichick can make Joe Burrow second guess some things and have a bad day, right? I mean, Joe Burrow's second year in the league, so go up against Belichick would be a tough draw for Cincinnati. So I still think that there are matchups in the AFC East or in the AFC in general, that the Patriots could have be able to limit and be able to win those types of games. But to beat these good teams, to beat an Indianapolis, to beat Buffalo, to beat Kansas City, I don't know if we're there yet.
Plus, the Patriots have a lot of good tape on Cincy. We know that, right?
Yeah. You did. You had to make that joke, didn't you?
You said they're going to Cincinnati. What can you do?
Yeah.
So so we'll see what happens. 2 more to go. And Patriots again still according to, whatever different analytical sites you want to point to, are still a 90+% chance to get into the playoffs even after the loss
Yeah.
today, but they've definitely made it tougher on themselves. Miami's lurking. So you really don't want to lay an egg against Jacksonville next week and have your entire season come down to that one.
Yeah, if they get to 10 wins against Jacksonville next week, it's going to be almost impossible.
Almost impossible not to. So you win that
Yeah.
and you're in. Yeah. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and check us out at CLNSmedia.com. Evan will have a write-up about what went wrong in today's 33-21 loss to the Buffalo Bills in Foxborough. Drops the Patriots to, what is it now? 3-5?
They're 9 and 6.
Foxborough?
Oh, in Foxborough? Yeah, I think that's right. Yep.
In Foxborough, which is pretty bad, guarantees a losing record, but also, at home, but also gives the Bills a driver's seat in the AFC East. Patriots now more likely than not will be entering the playoffs as a wild card. They will not be hosting a game. And right now, depending on seedings, you could be looking at a Cincinnati. You could be looking at, there's a couple different options there.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes. But again, clnsmedia.com for Evan. Any final thoughts before we wrap it?
You can't let them off the hook for the lack of energy. Honestly, that's the one thing I keep coming back to, and the fact that they were not good enough taking the kicking game out of it. On offensive defense, they were not good enough the last 2 weeks in any area to win those 2 games against 2 good teams. So that speaks to me. We can point to coaching, we can point to miscues, we can point to the fact they let Miles Bryant out to dry there today and let Josh Allen continue to beat that drum going to Isaiah McKenzie. I didn't like that. I don't like some of the usage of some of the personnel on offense, but ultimately you got out executed 2 weeks in a row. And maybe the Colts and the Bills, and I'd probably throw the Chiefs in there, are just better than you at this stage of the rebuild. And I think it's really that simple.
I don't think anybody, I think it's hard to argue that's not the case with the Bills. Yeah. And I think we knew it was fluky last time around, that win in the snow. And we said, toss that. You can't really look at that.
Right.
I believe a rematch with the Colts, the Patriots would find a way to win that. I do not believe in Carson Wentz. The Bills, I think, are a more complete team, but sometimes you get 2019 Josh Allen instead of 2020 Josh Allen. Today, you got the best version of Josh Allen that we've seen, or as good as he can be. Yeah. He was really dynamite, and they have that and you don't, and you've just got to kind of live with it. So that's where we are right now. There's definitely a couple of teams in there where you look at their overall talent level on their sideline versus the Patriots, and they're better. But as Evan said, it's still year one. This is.
I think that's the impatient gene in all of us, right?
It happens.
It needed to be a Super Bowl immediately, right?
Yeah.
It couldn't be a 2 or 3 year rebuild. It had to be an immediate rebuild. The Patriots still have a ton of building blocks and a ton of positive things to come away from this season. But right now, as we sit here an hour after the final whistle, I'm not going to get into the silver linings or the moral victories at this point in time, because I know people are frustrated. But once we can look at it from a bigger picture later on, I think we're going to recognize that this is a good foundational year for the Patriots. It might not be their year yet, just a good foundational year instead.